Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? This is mic check 1 2 1 2. This is the FTN Fantasy Baseball Podcast, Week 23. I am Vlad Sedler here with Mike Mager, and I apologize at the top of the show. The last time that we recorded, I tried something new with my mic, and I had it way lower, and you weren't hearing my voice, and it was very frustrating. But probably for some, not so frustrating. But anyways. Here we are. We are getting ready here with about 5 weeks left in the Major League Baseball season, in the fantasy season, and we're going to talk some FAAB. We're going to talk an early draft that took place for 2027, and who better to join me than Bronx Yankees 27, Mike Mager. What's up, Mike? Did I say 27? 23.
Yeah, 23, but that's okay. Don Mattingly.
Of course.
But good to be here, Vlad. Good to talk baseball with you again.
So we're well past the 100 games mark of the season. A lot of stuff happening as far as Maikel Garcia just got injured again, unfortunately, pulled up with a hamstring injury before it was a wrist. The big kind of news, of course, is the surge of Pete Crow Armstrong having a phenomenal season, 31 homers, 31 stolen bases, number one on the Fangraphs and probably the Razzball player rater. And they're talking about MVP. So where do you stand right now on the MVP race? We got to say it. If it ended today, what would you do with the MVP race?
Tough to say. It's definitely between him and Ohtani, and it's tough to totally ignore, Ohtani's contributions on both sides. He was kind of one of the top pitchers in baseball for the first part of the season, but as he continues to not be able to pitch, then you just have to kind of look at the hitting. And on the hitting side, it's tough not to give PCA the edge, especially recently. And he's not only putting up big numbers, but he's delivering in clutch situations, walk-off home runs. He's constantly getting the big hit. He's super impactful, especially from the leadoff position. It seems like every week he's, getting a leadoff home run to start a game, at least one. If Ohtani doesn't return to the mound, it is, I think it's anyone's game. I could definitely see PCA winning it. But it's so tough to vote against Ohtani. He's just so awesome on both sides of the plate. And really, there's so many guys on the Dodgers who are having disappointing seasons. He's just, he's been really good.
Yeah, no, he has been terrific. I just remembered. I swear I didn't think of it. This wasn't premeditated, but he was drafted by the Mets. Like, imagine if that had worked out. But a first round pick, obviously highly touted, highly talented. He went to high school at a, I guess, academically prestigious school here in Los Angeles. It's about 10 minutes away from me. Most people know it, Harvard Westlake. But and I knew that. And I also knew he grew up not liking the Dodgers. Was not a Dodger fan. And he's had some stuff over the season. So I respect his game. He's tremendous. What I didn't know is that, and I only learned this in the unfortunate death of Hayden Panettiere, 36-year-old actress, earlier this week. I didn't realize his parents were both Hollywood people that were in Heroes with Hayden back in the day. Do you remember that show? Did you ever watch Heroes?
No, don't. Not familiar with the show. I think I read somewhere that they were kind of in the acting industry, but I don't know that.
Yeah, and then as far as PCA, I was thinking about this. Like I had an article on Fangraphs that I guess a lot of friends told me they liked it, but I kind of knew it would be a little controversial, kind of because of the timing of it, because it was a little bit of like a Kyle Tucker is a person, like apology, like apology piece for him, I guess, in a way. But thought it, I spent a lot of time on it that day. And it was, I don't know, just something I think you have to read it to kind of figure it out for yourself, for anyone out there. But really, the point of it was that I don't think players, they have a certain responsibility. They have to talk to the media and this and that. But people and personalities are all different. Like, we don't really know. Like, just because Kyle Tucker has certain body language that isn't full of pizzazz, or he has a certain look. Like in hockey, Connor McDavid has a look of like a guy like this guy kind of looks annoying, just want to like punch him in the face. And obviously he's a leader and a great player and all that, but I don't know, some people just kind of have those faces for whatever it is. And Kyle Tucker is just he's an even kill guy. Everybody said so. Pete Alonso played with him in high school. Everyone that's ever played with him, he's just steady the way that he is. And because he got that big contract, just gets a lot of crap. And so my whole point in that didn't want to talk about that story. I wanted to mention how I thought about what it'd be like to be a writer and in the BBWA and have a vote, and thinking of how much is like weighing on you, where if it is really close between Crow, Armstrong, and Ohtani, and you're like an Ohtani guy, how do you like impartially vote, knowing that you're kind of part of this like history of being able to like get Ohtani another MVP award, get closer to Bonds? So a lot I said there, but take it where you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, just a couple of thoughts in response. I mean, it's one of the many things that makes this game, fantasy baseball, so challenging is, we can look at the back of the baseball cards, we can dig into all of the stats and metrics, but at the end of the day, they're people, and you don't know what they're going through or what they will go through when you are rostering them. And so it's challenging. People don't always, perform in a linear fashion, and the fact that they're humans, they're in a different, they're just like the rest of us. They have good days and bad days, good weeks and bad weeks and stuff. The difference being they're under much higher scrutiny than the vast majority of us. And in terms of the last thing you mentioned, the writers, the only thing I can think of is, you got experienced Hall of Fame voters who unbelievably, never elected anyone unanimously to the Hall of Fame until Mariano Rivera. And so, you think of all the greats that came before him who were denied votes for questionable reasons, and it's just part of the way things are, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, and I mean, seriously, it doesn't matter. Like, if I don't like PCA's persona, or I love the Dodgers and I love Ohtani, and aside of like, I have no like, don't blame me for what is potentially happening with ownership and management. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up as a kid as a Dodger fan. Like take it easy on us people that we just grew up around this team. Everybody's got issues, but my point is, if PCA deserves it, he should win it. I have no problem at all. I don't my life doesn't change the next day because Ohtani didn't win the MVP award. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. Let the votes decide. If he deserves it, he continues to do what he's doing over the next several weeks. The Dodgers continue to be kind of in that malaise. And I mean, Ohtani seems to be kind of matching him lately. Pound for pound, he's been hitting some home runs. So it should be a fun race.
Ohtani, I think, went through kind of a slower period, and from a fantasy perspective, he's not running as much. So from a fantasy perspective, you can certainly make the case for PCA over Ohtani. And I think part of it may come down to I think a lot will come down to how the last 5-6 weeks of the season go. Also, how much the writers weigh Ohtani's pitching contributions from the first half of the year. And, if they're weighed a lot, it's tough for anyone to match that. Because, I mean, he was a great pitcher in addition to all of his hitting accolades. But, if you kind of discount that because he hasn't been on the mound for a while and, probably isn't getting back on the mound anytime soon. If you just kind of focus on hitting, it's tough not to give PCA the kind of the lead, especially given recent performance. He's matching Ohtani, if not beating him, in kind of offensive output, and I would say he's had more kind of big hits, game-winning hits that people
sure has. Yeah, no, absolutely. And another guy I wanted to mention real quick is props to those of us that were on the Alec Burleson train. I don't think anybody expected. First, I don't think anyone expected that the MLB leaders in RBIs to be rookie Sal Stewart and Alec Burleson, but those Cardinals, those guys that front four, and now they added Joshua Baez. Those guys are putting up some numbers. Like you just go to all the stats leaders, and it's a very, very nice group for fantasy this year. The Cardinals.
Yeah, and what people thought would be a rebuilding year for them, they've I think probably overachieved, and future's looking bright with the way Walker stepped up this year, with Baez coming up now, and the emergence of Burleson as a kind of dependable middle of the order bat. It's Weatherhold's been fantastic. Ivan Herrera is a really good offensive player. So yeah, future looks bright. They got to get Wynn going. I think Wynn is kind of on the disappointing side, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, adding a guy like Joshua Baez, of course, those 3 home runs in that first game, making MLB history, and then as goes the case with so many players, doesn't matter who it is. Like you go big and then you go home for a bit. I mean, he went on a bit of a cold streak. Then he sat a game, came in pinch hit, believe stole a base. So it's we do the overreaction things very quickly. And the crazy part is people didn't get the fruits of their labor. Like I know there are so many good fantasy players in NFBC that targeted him and drafted a lot of him. And unfortunately, the lineup's locked. It was the early game on Friday, so they did not get those 3 home runs, and instead, got a bit of damage there early this week. But I mean, that's fantasy baseball. It's the name of the game. It's what we signed up for.
Yeah, no, you just sometimes wish the news would come out earlier when, but what, like you said, there was nothing people could do. The news came out after the early game locked, and so they were forced to watch those home runs with Baez on the bench. But I mean, I think the experience is pretty much what you would expect from him. I mean, he's got enormous power, and he also has enormous swing and miss. And he's going to strike out. I mean, if he wasn't whiffing so much in the minors, he'd have been up earlier. But I think one of the things that we've seen this year, last year, Murakami comes to mind, is that you can have pretty high strikeout rates in this version of MLB and still be a very positive, impactful player. And I expect he will be too.
So want to talk about the early draft that you were a part of, but just real quick, touching on the Athletics, who have just been absolutely snake bitten offensively. They are without arguably their 5 best players. The most recent, Jacob Wilson, looks like he may not return. He joins Rooker Langoliers, Nick Kurtz, of course, and Soderstrom, who was placed on the 60 earlier this week. And I mean, even, they were kicked when they were down. Even JKG, Joshua Kuroda Grauer, with the only guy you currently look in parentheses, it's testicle. That's the injury. So I hope he's doing better.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard anything on him recently, but they've had some horrible injuries, and their place in the standings is sinking fast. And honestly, they don't have much incentive to rush any of these guys back. So I'm not sure we're going to see too many of them back this season.
Are we going to see Leo DeVries in September? Is he healthy? Is he doing the thing in the minors? I haven't even checked on him lately.
Yeah, I haven't checked either. The only thing I know is both him and Mate, I think, are still like 19 years old. So
he's
young, really young. I could be wrong, but I think isn't he still in Double A? So maybe he gets promoted.
He's in Double A. Yeah, he's in Double A.
He
He's
promoted to Triple A for the last month of the season, and that sets them up to maybe compete for a roster spot come spring training.
Yeah, because that A's lineup is it's getting pretty bad. What's funny is on Sunday I was very much ready to drop Tommy White, that is, and then on Sunday he hits a home run, and I adjusted my bids just so that I would, instead of having like a long list, CVS receipt list of players that would just replace him. I'm like, he's got 7 games, or let's go for it. Let's just keep it. I put the 2 best players who I would take over him for him. And I know you wrote about him last week, like, why is this guy being rostered? You had an article, why is he being rostered? Yeah. And I obviously take that into account because everything that you say, I make sure that I'm paying attention to. But then afterwards, I guess I must have forgot about that. And I think it was just the home run, me also falling for recency bias. I'm like, sometimes it's all it takes. You get one out there, maybe you get going. I think he hit one the next day. Maybe he's cooled off, but he's going to get at least consistent playing time. So he might get the opportunity to do something. We'll see.
Yeah, no, it's well, you would know this better than me because you put out a lot more content and have been doing it for a lot longer. But it just seems like, once you go to press with something, life changes. That same article I was saying, I'm not sure why people are holding on to Luis Castillo. I mean, he had 3 wins, declining velocity, declining strikeouts. His ratios were way high, and I still had him on a team. I thought, I didn't draft him, but I had him for, maybe a month or two, just kind of, a matchup play when they're home, and that's kind of how I thought of him. And I just had come to the conclusion that he's not worth rostering. And I went, we went to print with that article. So of course, that night, I think he pitched a 7-inning shutout with 10 strikeouts, 1 hit allowed. I decided, maybe I'll hold on to him for another week.
Yep.
It happens. Although his first start this week looked remarkably similar to his prior one. So maybe that was just a kind of a revenge game against a bad Reds offense. But yeah, it just seems like once you go to print, something changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of revenge. It's also the roto gods playing cruel tricks on us because it sucks you back in. He's been doing this all year. He's staying on rosters for the name. He's Luis Castillo. He's been good to us for many years. And then we were out, and then he's going to the White Sox. Okay, not as good of a home pitching environment, but maybe a little bit of a shot in the arm, new life. But fact of the matter is, your instinct here, I think it rings true. This is a guy with a 4.99 ERA. The walk rate's great, everything, but his velocity's been consistently ticking down since 2020. Used to be, 97, touching 98. It's down to 95. His barrel rate allowed and home run rate, like everything is just like there towards the top of his career worst. And I haven't looked and seen exactly what matchups he has. And then 15 teamers, of course, you get a matchup like that against the Reds or something looks good on paper, you take it. But in 12 teamers, I still think we, maybe be cautious. We have more choices in the 12 team format.
Oh, for sure. And before we leave the A's, just want to point out that they are home next week against projected to be 6 righties. So, lefties on the A's may still have some value next week.
Yes, indeed. Henry Bolt has actually been doing really well for them. Leading off, playing center, just really getting it done. Lawrence Butler, of course, is back on the map out of necessity, just because they really don't have anyone, and their offensive team leader. He's come so far. He's back in the picture, but Zach Geloff has spent some time on the L, but he's been incredible.
Carlos Cortez might be relevant next week, and Jeff McNeil is quietly contributing lately as well. He's had a strong month. So, some lefty athletics might be a sneaky cheap pickup this week.
So that's Well, so before talking about the draft, I wanted to mention Cal Raleigh because I mean, is it possible? You'd have to look back, but like for somebody that has 300 plus plate appearances, I mean, could he be like one of the worst official like production declines that we've ever seen for an early round pick? Like it's bad. I mean, this guy among 181 qualified hitter, not qualified, but hitters with at least 350 plate appearances. There are 181 of them. His batting average, for example, is worst in the majors. It's 156. It's really bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad that the next worst guy is Evan Carter at 195. And that's kind of saying a lot. He's batting 100 over the last month, and just so sad to see hit batting seventh, getting days off. He's just in a funk. He's one of those guys that's in a funk. Kyle Tucker, Austin Riley, so many guys that have disappointed. But what are your thoughts about Cal Raleigh in the context of where he is worth going next season with all the great catchers?
Yeah. So I mean, I think if you exclude injuries, this probably is the greatest fall from one season to another, probably in baseball history. I mean, this was the guy who hit 60 home runs last year and with a decent average, and if I recall correctly, double-digit stolen bases. And this year he's just been horrendous. I mean, I've seen tweets where his batting average is lower than one-handed players. I think Judge still maybe has more hits than Raleigh, and he hasn't played since like May. So it's just it's been a horrendous season for him. So where does he go next year? I mean, just to jump ahead, he went at the end of the 8th round in the early draft that we talked about, and that kind of seems reasonable to me. I mean, I think you have to know. I mean, we've seen the floor this year. We saw the ceiling last year. Before that, we had a number of years of low batting averages, but strong power, 30, 35 home run power. So he definitely needs to kind of fix his swing, fix his approach, and the offseason gives him plenty of time to do that. So, I'll be curious to see where the projections have him. I mean, I think he's kind of a roster construction guy because I think you have to assume he's going to hurt your average. So you have to kind of plan around that if you're competing for any type of overall. But I would expect a power rebound. I would expect a rebound period. I mean, and his playing time safe. He's a switch hitter. He's an excellent defensive catcher. I don't know what went wrong this year, but sometimes it's not easy correcting mechanical issues mid-season. When you just have game after game after game to play. So it's almost painful to watch, and he's crippled many fantasy teams, including one of mine. But I have to think he's better next year. But I'm sure that when we get into draft season, that there's going to be certain owners who are just going to not consider him.
Maybe you should have shook our Randy Rosarena teammates' hand in the WBC. There is no WBC this year, so that's.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Yeah, you should. Thank goodness indeed. Really quick question before we get to that draft, because it is a Yankees question, and I know you love those 10-teamers, but let's reframe that the maker brain for a 10-teamer. I saw your eyes widen. Is Jazz dead weight on a 10-teamer? And how much realistic playing time will we see for Judge? Would you axe either of them in a 10-teamer?
I think you could. I think you could justify dropping Jazz in a 10-teamer. I mean, I don't play 10-teamers, so take that advice with a grain of salt. But
he does not. He
does not look good to me. I mean, I don't have him anywhere, but he gives you speed, and once every couple of weeks he'll have a homer or two, but He doesn't look good. I think in a deeper league you hold him, but in a 10-team league, if you have a good alternatives to him, I think I'd ride the hot hand. I think when you're talking roto, it also depends on what your needs are. You know, if you're strong in batting average, he's easier to take for the roto juice of power and speed. But if you're strong in power and speed and you're just looking kind of runs and average, I think you could do better. Judge,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know when Judge is coming back. It sounds like he's starting to ramp back up. It wouldn't surprise me if he's back for a couple of weeks. I think part of it, honestly, may depend on what the playoff race looks like. I mean, they clearly want him healthy for the playoffs, assuming they're still, comfortably in the playoff race. But if they're in danger of missing the playoffs, for instance, that would kind of be the incentive to get him back sooner rather than later. If not, they're going to continue to take their time with him and try to make sure he's right for October.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think I would not drop Judge. It's assuming you can't hold him in an IL spot still. But Jazz, it's okay because so maybe you spent a third round pick in your 10-teamer draft capital. It doesn't matter at this point. It's what you think the player is going to do for you the rest of the season. And there's always something there on a 10-team waiver wire. There's always something there on a 12-teamer. And yeah, if you have Jazz, you're almost kind of you're paying for past. And the reason why you're not seeing him as a platoon guy that he actually is right now, it's because they faced a lot of righties, and he's going to be sitting against some of those lefties. Next week, the Yankees are going to face. They're facing some tough righties this weekend. They've got Cease and Soriano, but next week. That's a good question. They're going to get the Red Sox to have a lot of lefties.
Yeah. It looks like he's kind of a half-week guy next week. They start against Houston, get 3 righties, but then they have a 4-game series over the weekend with the Red Sox, and they likely face 3 left-handed starters. So probably not a great period, assuming NFBC and 2 weekly scoring periods. But I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, to me, at this point of the season, name value is meaningless. Whatever you paid in draft or FAAB is a sunk cost, and you got to focus on who are the best players from now through the end of the season. And in some cases, who's the best player for next week, really.
Okay, so let's talk about the way too early meatball draft. Rob DiPietro, fantasy baseball analyst, gets together a group of some of the best drafters and analysts every year. They do this around August. Mike is a part of it. Got a lot of other phenomenal people involved, and it's the first look at a board. It's a great idea, and it's nice to see. It might even set the tone for some DCs as those get underway after the World Series, and of course, there are going to be a lot of things that change between now and then. But you took part in this, so talk to us about what the maybe not everyone's familiar with the structure, roto, how many teams and all that, and talk a little bit about this draft.
Sure. Yeah, this is the 5th year that Rob DiPietro has organized it, and I've been fortunate enough to play every year, and it's a fantastic league. As you mentioned, there's a lot of familiar names and super strong players in the league. It is an NFBC Draft Champions League, so it's 15 teams, 50 rounds. It's a real league. It's $150 entry fee, and we'll play this league out. The only difference between this and other Draft Champions leagues is this is not part of the overall contest, so it's a standalone league. So maybe a little less pressure to get saves. But for the most part, everyone is playing, to win this, treats it as a regular league. We did 15 rounds. Previously, we did 11 the last couple of years. But we did 15 rounds live Tuesday night. And whenever the NFBC draft room opens up again, late October or November, we'll finish the remaining 35 rounds in a slow draft format. But fantastic league, kind of has a home league feel because we have very low turnover, and it's to me one of the most challenging leagues to draft because there's no ADP. Everything that happened this season is kind of meaningless, but the power of recency bias is enormous and definitely impacts everyone, including myself. And you're trying to predict how these guys are going to do next year. Many of the players are free agents. Many of them are changing positional eligibility from this year to next year, and some of them may change again between now and the end of the season. So you're really, kind of forecasting out ahead, and it's challenging but super fun to draft with no ADP, no 2027 projections. It's all, people prep for it in different ways, but it's really fun and challenging. And yeah, it'll give people an idea on where some folks are likely to go. But as you mentioned, there will be a lot of changing between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was talking to you about before is some of the ways in which you have to prep. And one thing that I'm sure this group and you, of course, considered was position eligibility changes, right? Because a lot of these guys, like Ben Rice, doesn't have his catcher eligibility. CJ Abrams should be a second baseman soon. Jordan Alvarez is now an outfielder. Things like that make a difference. So how deep do you have to go to make sure you're accounting for everything properly, and then assessing that, including that into your value assessments?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to be cognizant of as many positional changes as possible. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Alvarez, you mentioned, he had been stuck on 19 games in the outfield for quite a while, and you need 20 to get next year eligibility in the NFBC. And a lot of us can remember Christian Yelich getting stuck at 19 last year, and so he was UT only for this whole season. But Jordan got in a game a few days ago in the outfield and got the 20, so he became a clear-cut safe outfielder. But you have some guys who are changing and that you might not think of, like Brent Rooker's been out all year following surgery, but he's going to be UT only next year, not outfield eligible. Yandy Diaz is going to be UT only. He was a first baseman this year, but actually has not played a single game at first base in 2026, so he's UT only. So things like that. Murakami, it was third base eligible to start this season. Next year, he's going to be only first base eligible. So you definitely need to kind of be prepared in that way. It's something that, once we enter, the real draft season, we'll have draft rooms, and the draft rooms will list all the players with their positional eligibility. Here, we don't have that. Everyone's working off their own created lists and trying to get the positions as accurate as they can before we start.
So in this draft, you had the 5 pick. I'm going to try to see if I can get this up on the board. Yeah. So, and I'll do my best for those that are going to listen to this audio via podcast, and we'll try not to say him and them and him. So we will refer to the players. But you had the 5 pick. It went Pete Crow Armstrong first, Ohtani second, Bobby Witt Jr. third, Aaron Judge fourth. What did you do, and why did you pick this person over everyone else on the board?
Yeah, I took Junior Caminero. I have a desire next year to make sure I am strong in power. I think that's I think people have already discovered, if they didn't know already, that that's one of the toughest categories to improve upon in FAAB. So I wanted power. Caminero had 45 homers last year. He's on his way to 40 plus this year. He just turned 23. So in my mind, the best is yet to come. He hits for a good average. I think the average has some upside as well. He's been durable. I don't want to overweight positional scarcity, especially in a DC and especially with my early picks. But
Hmm.
it was in the back of my head that looking, at least initially, second base and third base looked decidedly weaker than most other positions. And so at that point in the draft, after PCA, Otani, Witt, and Judge were taken, for me, it was a question of Caminero, James Wood, and Yordan Alvarez. And, honestly, if I just wanted to take the best pure hitter, I think Alvarez would be the guy. Still, kind of a slight health concern. He still has the same knees. He still missed a lot of time with hand issues last year. Been healthy this year and just awesome. So
Does it become more of a concern because now he's a little older? Think about it, and what are the chances he stays healthy 2 years in a row? But yeah, that's gonna be a first
yeah,
round.
yeah. I mean, I think he's closing in on 30, but he's not that old. And
Yeah.
honestly, maybe he's less risky because he's outfield eligible, who will probably DH most of the time. Um, but between Caminero and Jordan, I think they're kind of similar players. Jordan's probably a little better hitter, but it's close. And I kind of leaned into younger, healthier third base as the slight tiebreaker, but it's not a knock on him. And Wood was definitely under consideration as well. What a season he's had on a resurgent Nationals offense. I mean,
Hmm.
hitting leadoff power, plus you get some speed. You probably sacrifice some average with Cameron Arrow. High strikeout rate, which I don't want to overweight, which I think in the past I probably have, and I want to get away from that. But you're talking about three great players, so the
Hmm.
differences are pretty minute. But that's just kind of what I was thinking in leaning a little bit towards Caminero. I think the best is yet to come with him. I think I could say the same thing with Wood as well.
Hmm.
But Alvarez is awesome also.
Were you surprised to see that, and knowing how NFBC 15 team managers mostly operate with pitchers, good pitchers, the top guys never kind of falling, but the number one pitcher off the board didn't go until 12, and that's Jacob Mizrowski. Um, is this around where you thought he was going to go? Is there just a concern that, like, a guy who throws that hard, arm could fall off? Because I mean, he might be the first guy to ever have a strikeout rate, qualified starting pitcher, of over 40% ever. Bieber did it in 2020. Doesn't really count. It was the COVID shortened season, and Garrett Cole came really close. He was at 39.9 about 3 years ago. But I mean, this is an outstanding season. Talk about the Miz.
Yeah, no, I was surprised he went as late as he did. I kind of expected him to be closer to the middle of the first round, and I could see um, if we have normal schedule and he's fine through the playoffs, I could see him being a top three, top four pick come main event time next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then about some of
I think,
these.
let me
Sorry.
just say I'll just add that I think because pitchers are a little riskier than hitters in terms of injuries, certainly much higher percentage of IL stints. That in this league, there's maybe a reluctance to go big on pitching when we still have to kind of get through another 6 weeks of the season, let alone the off season. So I think that maybe contributed to it.
Mhm. Yeah, very very much so. So yeah, you took Caminero, and then after that was a string of outfielders. Though one of them is going to be second base eligible this year. So 6 through 10 was James Wood, Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis Jr., Yordan Alvarez, Jordan Walker. Of course, having that big season, first round value right now. You got Ellie, Jacob Mizrowski, and then the last three of the first round turn was C.J. Abrams, Jose Ramirez, Jackson Churio. Uh, I wasn't that surprised to see Connor Griffin there, 16th, but I mean, I like Connor Griffin. I kind of like it if he stays healthy. Although he's kind of gives the Mike Trout. We talked about this before. The Mike Trout all out vibes, and you just kind of hope that his body stays healthy and doesn't get banged up.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a gutsy pick. Of course, when you're drafting on the end, Griffin was not going to get back to Team 15 in the third round. Certainly, he probably wouldn't have gotten much deeper into the second round. I think some of the other folks were teeing him up as well. I mean, what he showed before his injury was a fantasy kind of superstar. I mean, I think he showed 20 to 30 home run power, and he showed 50 stolen base capability. It's not difficult to see him hitting high up in that lineup. I think the lineup's improved this year. There'll be adjustments and growing pains, perhaps. He's still super young, but I can see him being a better fantasy player than real life player next year. But yeah, it surprised me a little bit how early he went, but in thinking about it, I think that's probably where he's going to go in most drafts. And honestly, if he comes back at the beginning of September like he's expected to, and has a strong September, I would not be surprised to see him with a first round ADP.
So in the second round, you took Gunnar Henderson. At that point, you had a few pitchers, the next four pitchers after Miz come off the board. You had a little bit of a discounted, he's a Dodger, we hate him now. Tariq Skubal went pick 2, 3, second round, third pick. Mason Miller, first closer off the board. Christopher Sanchez, of course, Cam Schlittler, and Yoshi Yamamoto. So you got those five guys. Would you have taken one of the pitchers there in this draft where you took Gunnar?
Yes, actually, in fact, that was my hope and plan. Was I knew that Skubal would certainly be gone before me, but I was hoping to get one of Sanchez, Schlittler, or Yamamoto. And of course, I got to experience my first snipe of 2027, got that under the belt now. And so, yeah, I pivoted and I took Gunnar Henderson. In retrospect, I think I probably would have been better off taking Luzardo and locking up my SP1 there. That's one of several picks that I regret that I would say was a mistake. But I do like Gunnar to rebound next year. I think the average will regress positively. I think he's a 30 home run hitter with some double-digit steals. So I'm expecting a better year from him. And while shortstop is pretty deep, and there are a lot of really strong shortstops taken after Gunnar, I like Gunnar, I guess, considerably more than the remaining shortstops. And when all three of my targeted pitchers were taken, I pivoted to Gunnar. So kind of regret the pick a little bit, but I do like Gunnar for next year. And
does it matter to you where he plays, right? Because there's I don't know. Sometimes you just see something and you don't know, what's real or not. Like today, I saw somebody, it looked like a very serious post, but now you were able to kind of discern more what's real or not. And it was ridiculous. It was like Jeff Passan is under investigation for for like aiding and abetting the Dodgers and holding secret information, getting paid. And it's quite clearly satire, but it came across real serious. And we don't all have those skills of like what's real or not. Because if you are, if you click on the comment section and was like, oh my God, I can't believe it happened. Oh yeah, of course I knew it. All that stuff. Saying that, basically I'm saying I saw Gunnar Henderson doesn't want to resign or may not want to resign with the Orioles. He's, going to be a free agent. He's on that 1-year deal. Does that make a difference? Do you think he would go anywhere? Or do you think he would stay in Baltimore?
I'm expecting him to stay in Baltimore, and I could be wrong. I don't think he's a free agent next year. Let me just double check that. Sorry to hold this up a
Not
second.
about free agent, but he's on a
Yeah, no,
he's ARB eligible.
ARB eligible. Yeah, he's a free agent until 2029, so he's got 3 more years in Baltimore. So first, I unless you know the poster, I would discount anything you read on Twitter.
Yeah, he's a free agent until 2029. Yeah.
And second, he's got I haven't heard from him any indication that he's unhappy. He's got 3 more years in Baltimore, and so I drafted him as an Oriole for next year, and I'm just expecting bigger and better things from him.
Then in the third, you took your first closer around the board after you. Another 3 pitchers came off the board: Luzardo, Chris Sale, and Dylan Cease. Ronald Acuna fell to the early third. When you took Cade Smith, would you have considered a starting pitcher if he fell to you? Would you have considered Ronald Acuna Jr. if he fell to you?
I certainly would have drafted Luzardo and Cease and probably Sale. Although again, I'm trying to get. I want to kind of limit how many like older players I draft going into next year. But no, I would not have drafted Acuna. I'm a little disappointed both with the performance and the health. And I also, honestly, having drafted Gunnar second, my priority was getting a pitcher in round 3.
Yep.
So for me, the dilemma at that point, given who was taken, I focused more on: do I take Cade Smith, the second closer off the board, who I have ranked as the second closer, or do I take my next starting pitcher, which was Chase Burns, who happened to be the next starting pitcher that came off the board. And that was a tough call. Honestly, at 3-5, it felt a little early for Burns, but that was just kind of my thinking. But he was definitely my next starting pitcher. I had no idea whether he was others' next starting pitcher, but no, I figured there seemed to be a decent amount of starters still left on the board. I felt like we had finished the truly elite aces, and I figured let me get the stronger closer now and come back and take the next best starter after that. I think Cade Smith is an excellent pitcher. I love the way the Guardians use him as a traditional closer. He gets the 9th inning all the time. He's the guy. And, it's a volatile position, but if there's such a thing as a safe 40 save closer, it's him. And I just figured, let me just kind of lock that in now while I could, and come back to starters afterwards.
What pick in the first 3 rounds would you say this is? Forget, these people, they're your friends. This is business. What pick just stands out to you as it just doesn't belong there in the first 3 rounds? Or maybe you could frame it as not, call it not for you kind of pick. But is there anyone that just like, hey, this guy's not a first, second, or third round pick, that I think he's going to be way lower when we get to regular drafting?
Way lower? No, I don't think. I don't think they're
injury aside.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think Mazeroski's going to be higher. I was a little surprised, honestly, with the Jordan Walker pick at 110. I guess I got to dig into him more. I'm not sure I see him as a first rounder. I guess just having done it once after years and years of disappointment. But I can't knock it. I mean, he's putting up first round numbers this year. I probably took Gunnar too early.
I knew you would say your own pick. How did I know that?
Yeah, I mean, I like some of my picks. I generally like my team, but I definitely made some mistakes or picks I would take back. I was surprised with Miguel Vargas at 3-1. I'm not surprised he was, a top 3 or 4 round pick, because he's having a fantastic season, and he gives you both power and some speed from a corner infielder is really nice. I think he's an excellent player. I'm not sure I'm taking him ahead of Nick Kurtz, Ben Rice, Pete Alonso, and Matt Olson. Just I think kind of safer profiles, big power. But yeah, no, I think those are the ones that kind of surprised me a little bit in the maybe I don't know that I'd have Yuri Perez at the end of at
End of round 3. Yeah.
yeah, that might be a little high.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I'm not going to knock anyone's picks. You know,
Yeah.
all were reasonable. Just those were the ones that kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because remember Jackson Merrill, for example, had that phenomenal rookie season, and then the next year, of course, a lot of that he was hurt, then he fell a little bit, was more reasonable last season, and he's doing really well and could be bounced back. But or Kurtz, for example, like people, he's going to be forgiven for injury because when he was playing, he was amazing, and then also he's got another year in Sacramento, and after that he goes to Vegas, whatnot, but. I feel like there's a very natural aversion for players that you kind of know they have the skill, but then it comes so much later in their careers that it's kind of shocking, even though some of them are still young. But there's something natural about being like, okay, well, Jordan Walker did it once. Miguel, finally lived up to the hype. But what's next? You're going to be like. Miguel Vargas, couldn't. I love the guy. I loved the guy when he was with the Dodgers. Couldn't hit out of a paper bag. But really didn't get a chance. Dave Roberts really didn't give him a shot. And now he's got almost 30 home runs and 20 stolen bases, almost and putting up runs in RBI. Sometimes it's hard to wrap head around where it's different. Where somebody like McConaughey, where it's like, oh, it's backed up by he was a top prospect, or him and Weatherholt, they're a top prospect. And they're producing, and and they're getting it done, and this is how it was supposed to be. But sometimes it's different when it's somebody, a little bit, a bit of a later bloomer.
Yeah, I mean, with some players, after seeing them struggle, you want to see them succeed for more than 1 year. I mean, there's certainly, a ton of players who have a really good year and then they revert back. The kind of their prior level of performance, and that one good year, looks to be an obvious outlier. But you don't know that the next year, and you don't know that when you're drafting in August like a crazy person. So, you got to do the best you can. I mean, certainly Vargas and others, based on the season they're having this year, belong, to be up there.
Yeah, I'm liking. I see Logan Gilbert. Sorry, I like your Logan Gilbert pick. But I was going to say Logan Henderson. My goodness, this guy's having a phenomenal season. It's nice to see him healthy. It's only been 12 starts, but that 31+% strikeout rate with only a 5% walk rate and a phenomenal organization. If he has a good playoff, right now, it kind of seems like Brewers have a kind of the hot team, could be the team to beat, and I mean, he can have some playoff glory and really rise up draft boards, especially if he continues to pitch how he is now.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, he's been fantastic whenever he's pitched. I mean, the only issue is kind of projecting the innings for him because he's dealt with a lot of injuries. But players can be injury prone until they're not, and if he's kind of turning the corner now. That could be a great pick for next year.
Want to talk a little bit about just a real quick preview on FAAB for next week. So just kind of wrapping up this group. I wanted to kind of list out your next picks, or just some can see the board, or you can highlight anyone that you really are happy with that you grabbed between rounds 5 to 15. Any disappointments there? By the way, Alec Burleson in the 9th, well done. Brandon Lau having a phenomenal season in the 10th, great job. But yeah, talk us through a couple of your highlights and lowlights.
Yeah, so I'll start with round 4, actually, I was thrilled to get Logan Gilbert coming back that as late as he did. That was probably the easiest pick of the draft for me. I just, not saying he's, a top 3 or top 5 pitcher even, but I think he's a dependable SP1 who gets you innings and good Ks. And I love the fact that he's consistently produces very strong whips. So I kind of like that as an anchor. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Harrison was my SP2. Kind of similar to Henderson. Really love what the Brewers have done with him. I think a possibility of a 200 strikeout guy, which hopefully would pair well with Gilbert. Yeah, going down, Burleson was a pick I was happy with. I really like him. Some may consider that a little bit of a reach or unusual, taking him before Freeman and Devers, who went a few picks after him. But I honestly,
No,
for next year, okay, well, for next year, I definitely prefer Burleson. I really like what I've seen from him this year. Low, Brandon Lau or
wow.
Lau, yeah. That's, I wanted to boost my power a little more, and he fit the bill. A little risky because he's a free agent, so I'm not really sure where he's going to wind up. But he's just, if he's healthy, and that's maybe a bigger if with him than some players, he's just a consistent power source. Really good player when he's healthy. The I guess the kind of the 2 picks I would highlight next would be Edwin Diaz and Chandler Simpson. So Diaz really fell in this draft, and he deserved to. I picked him up at 11.5. I'll just say that he's been terrible this year, and he's been hurt this year, and so he deserved to be punished, and he was. And then the question that all of us had during this draft was, these guys who either were hurt and or underperformed significantly, how much do you punish them? Where do you jump back in on them? And with Diaz, my thinking really was just, he's had a number of years as a dominant closer. So something is not right with him, either health and or mechanics, but the Dodgers have every resource available to them, and there's a lot of time to get him right. None of the health issues appear serious. Also, they're paying him to be, a lockdown closer. So if he's healthy next year, he should have every opportunity to go back into the closer role. And so I could be getting the closer for one of the, top 2 or 3 teams in baseball in the 11th round. And to me, the risk reward was worth it to take him there. And then the other thing I'll just highlight is one of the picks that I don't dislike, kind of Chandler Simpson in the 14th, but for me, that's the fact that I felt compelled to take him shows that I made mistakes during this draft, because I don't like taking these, all speed, 0 power type guys. And, he does hit for average too, but I typically avoid that type of player, but I found myself feeling like I was short on power. I'm sorry, short on speed. I had steals from Henderson, Rafaela, but really not much speed at all. I did a lousy job drafting speed, and so kind of missed on a couple of guys who I had been targeting for speed. Just got taken before I got to them, and so I took Simpson. He hopefully helps me catch up in speed, but I guess I would say he's indicative of a mistake I made during the draft.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had the same feeling when I saw you with Simpson. It's not a Mike Mager type pick, but yeah, no, that makes sense. The average is really, I think, feel really solid as well. got a guy like Gabriel Moreno, one of the best, I think, contact hitters, just all around hitters in baseball without the the massive power. I think that's a really solid pick as well. So yeah, we're really really well done. And this draft then plays out, is drafted at the remaining 35 rounds are drafted sometime in the future.
Yeah,
Online?
it should be once the NFBC opens their draft room. One of those guys will input the first 15 rounds, and then we'll get going and draft the next 35 rounds.
Okay. Awesome. Last thing I wanted to ask you, just kind of, we have FAAB coming up this Sunday. I'm just getting started on my work. It's only Thursday when we record this. I'm going to be doing it most of the rest of the day today and tomorrow. But schedule wise, we know some things coming up. You already mentioned the A's are at home for 6. They're going to play the Twins and the Orioles. They're going to be coming to Sacramento. Nationals have a really nice schedule on paper. They got 4 at home against the Rockies, 3 against the Marlins. They're going to play a lot of righties, so you won't see a lot of Andres Chaparro. The Braves are gonna play a weekend series at home, but it's against the Rockies next weekend. And then the Boston Red Sox and New York Yankees play a 4-game series next weekend, a very crucial one in Yankee Stadium. There's going to be a doubleheader on Saturday. Looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. Are you going to any of those games? Going to fly up for that?
Nope, not flying up for them. But I do have a trip coming up in mid-September. I'm going with one of our sons. We're going to catch a long weekend. We're going to see the Guardians and Pirates.
Nice.
So relatively close stadium. So looking forward to checking those out and knocking off 2 more parks on my list.
Excellent. So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So no, not going to any games next week, but yeah, it should be an interesting week for FAAB. We were chatting. Other than Kate Anderson, I'm not sure it's going to be many, if any, like real impact players coming up for the first time, and we don't know when Anderson's coming. I think a lot of it's going to be this week is, playing matchups, playing schedules, filling in holes, and maybe, gambling on some injury stashes that, maybe are coming back in September. But I think we had some interesting call-ups and some fun FAABs for a couple of weeks after really slow ones. And it wouldn't shock me if this week is kind of back to a kind of a slower, more need-specific type FAAB.
Yeah, unless Kate Anderson's coming up, it probably is. I've done some of my initial work for it, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be massive. People have, on average, over $100 remaining, but that includes a lot of teams that are not active. That count is considered, obviously calculated into that average. And a lot of people, at least in my leagues, and that I've seen, have very, very few dollars left. So yeah, going to be, it's dollar days for the most part from here on out. Let's end with this. I got a list of pitchers, starting pitchers, who are for the most part available in 15 teamers in NFBC, anywhere from completely unrostered to 87%. But I want to just play a little game of, I don't even have the right categories, but it's like, if they're like, would you get them if they were available and start them, or would you just avoid altogether? I guess we can keep it that simple, but let's do that. And I know you hadn't really sent you the list beforehand, don't really have time to research it yet, to know what someone's, how some teams perform against, WRC against lefties and this and that. So instead, I'll just kind of run down the names and go with let's a little gut game here on if you would trust starting them here. So Merrill Kelly, the Diamondbacks, and of course, all subject to change. But Merrill Kelly versus the Cubs, and then at San Francisco, he is available in 7% of mains.
Okay, so let me answer it this way. In Roto, if you're desperate for strikeouts, you have a lower bar for these 2-star pitchers. Probably same with wins. On the other hand, if you're prioritizing ratios, you may have a very high bar. I'm going to assume all categories are relevant. So,
all relevant, but let's say you're also you don't want to get the ratios blowed up.
Okay. So I'm going to pass on Kelly.
Okay. I'm guessing you'll pass on these next two, but let's see. Jeffrey Springs. Yeah.
At home.
Not even bring. Yeah, 2 at home. Chris Bassett had a nice start earlier. Maybe it was yesterday or today. He's back in the mix. He's at St. Louis and at Athletics.
Pass.
Okay.
He's a whip killer.
He is a whip killer. Hosey or Kitty. He before you say it, he hasn't pitched. He hasn't started a game since 2023. Back when he was with the Astros and obviously injury and everything, but he came in for the White Sox after Sean Newcomb on Thursday, and so obviously didn't start the game, but he pitched 6 scoreless innings. I think it was like 8 strikeouts. He looked incredible. If you watched any of the highlights or watched the game, he would get Texas and at Minnesota next week, and may not start the games, might have an opener, but is stretched out, obviously. What do you say?
Yeah, I would want to look into more. I'd want to look into that start, see if, is his velo up compared to historical, or was he getting swing and misses, or just lucky BABIP? But the matchups are appealing, but I will say that if I'm in a tight race now, I'd have a tough time betting my season on Jose Urquidy after one good start, one good long relief appearance.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Big ERA with his peripheral differentials, Mr. Kiter Montero versus Tampa versus Dodgers. Assuming that's the 2 start.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me because I do like this pitcher more than the others we've talked about, and I'm comfortable. I think I would. I may gamble on this one. Sorry to raise this, but the Dodgers offense has been kind of scuffling a lot lately, and I don't think they're as much of an automatic avoid as they were earlier in the season. So he's Montero's home in a nice big Detroit park. I think I would throw this. I would be nervous about it just because it's 2 good teams, but I do like this pitcher, and at home, I think I'd probably lean into this one. What do you think?
I agree with you there. I would keep running it with Montero. Of course, I think the ball being at home for those 2 starts, I think makes a big difference. So yeah, just roll with it. Seth Lugo.
Pass.
He's been bad. I don't know. I see him with high rostered, and I have no idea why. So just avoid Seth Lugo at Toronto, at Cleveland.
Main value, yeah.
Adrian Hauser. He was a target for me this past weekend. I did not get him, and it wasn't just that one good start, but sometimes just good things happen when you're at home in that park, and it can be good. Sometimes it can be horrible.
Yeah, I think it's a high risk, but it's the being at home is good, and Cincinnati has been whiffing a lot. The matchups are intriguing. I think I'd have a tough time still getting on board with Adrian Hauser.
This next one, it's a little tricky because I don't know if you know how bad his ERA is, though his xFIPS here is about a run lower, but Matthew Liberatore has a 5.04 ERA. Every time I look, it seems like he's got like 7 or 9 strikeouts, per game, and walk rate's decent, but he would get Baltimore and Pittsburgh at home. Let me ask you this one and the next guy, the last guy, in just context of 12 teamers. I know 15 is your bread and butter, but if you're looking to stream a Matthew Liberatore for Baltimore, Pittsburgh, or Andrew Alvarez, home, Colorado, Miami, which of those 2, depending on what categories do you trust more in a 12?
Alvarez in a heartbeat. Liberatore scares me. I mean, going into the year, he looked like maybe the Cardinal pitcher with one of the higher upsides on that staff, and he's been one of their worst pitchers, or maybe the worst starter for the Cardinals. And I think there's the 2 opposing teams, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, have enough good hitters, and Pittsburgh's healthy now with a lot of good left-handed bats. I don't want to do that matchup. Alvarez, I think, has really good stuff. I'm intrigued by Alvarez, and yeah, Miami's scrappy, but home against Colorado is, that's a slam dunk for me. I'm starting Alvarez in that pretty easily.
Yeah, Marlins to me, the fact that they don't have Kyle Stowers anymore, I think, is also a big deal. He was a big thump there in that offense. Lastly, how do you foresee Joe Musgrove rest of the season? He's going to be making his debut Friday. His velo's been up in the minors, been looking good there, and his rehab starts, available in 23% of main events. What are your expectations for Musgrove rest of the season?
It's so tough. It's been so long since we've seen him pitch, but I don't know. I think any pitcher's been out that long, you almost have to assume there'll be some growing pains. Like if he starts this week, to the extent you still have control over it, I think I would feel better kind of watching the first start from the bench and seeing how he looks. But a healthy Musgrove is probably still like a solid SP4 type, and he's startable in most matchups for me in a 15-team league. But I kind of want to see him look good against major league hitting once before subjecting my ratios to that. I also, who knows if he, will stay healthy, but also, is he going to immediately go 5+ innings? So yeah, I can see him being a solid addition. I don't think he's available right now in any of my leagues. If he was, I would have a bid on him. I wouldn't break the bank for him, but I would on him. I would try to pick him up. And in fact, I had him in strings the last couple of weeks, but just did not get him.
Yeah, I got him for 6 with backup of 6 and some lower ranked. I got him. So I don't know. We'll see if that's a blessing or a curse. He was up to 70 pitches in his last outing.
Starting this week?
No, I'm not, because at that point we weren't sure if he was going to be in the rotation. So I didn't start him.
Yeah. So if he does pitch this weekend, maybe you get a free preview and see how he looks.
Exactly. Sure. So we'll see him possibly Friday. We'll see by the time maybe you listen to this. My last thought, one thing I forgot to mention is I just want to give a shout out the graphic we showed earlier, the draft board that was created by Ryan Roof. So props to Ryan for that. And he did an incredible job. So we drafted 225 players, and he had kind of the stickers prepared for 223 or 224 of them. I think one of them he was a mistake that he meant to have a sticker for and he didn't. But so yeah, he did a fantastic job anticipating our picks, and it certainly added to the experience having those stickers pop up after every pick. That's very cool. Any last thing you wanted to mention before we sign it off for the night?
No. I mean, I had a great time doing this draft. Thanks to Rob and everyone in that league for putting it together. I mean, things are certainly going to change between now and the end of the season, but it was a really fun exercise, and maybe give some people some indications on how high certain hot players are going to go this year, and how much underperformers are going to be punished. And a lot of fun. Just want to say good luck to everyone as we wind down and go into the home stretch.
Yes, good luck this weekend in FAAB. Hope let's give some guys stay healthy. It's going to be crazy. Soon we'll have roster expansion. We've got the last month of the season, the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun. But we'll be back with you next week, and we appreciate you for tuning in. For Mike Mager, I'm Vlad Sedler. This is the FTN Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We'll talk to you next time.